And we are live. Welcome to the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast, brought to you by Ringside. Go to ringside.com/podcast, and you too can get 40% off selected brands. Well, this is a new one. We're going live with the great Kevin Ioli from kevinioli.com to talk about the big fight that happened last weekend. Kevin, let's hear your thoughts on this one.
Boy, I'll tell you what. First of all, George, that was an unbelievable fight, and it was an honor to have Coach Diz jump in the chat with us.
Yeah, he was in there
on ppv.com, so that was a lot of fun. I thought both guys fought well. And I wrote a story, I think Thursday or Friday before the fight, talking with Russ Amber of Usyk's team, and we talked about the pace that Usyk fights at. And I think that really was a big factor in this fight. You know, he went hard the whole way. And Fury won a lot of those rounds, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if not all of those rounds. But the pace was really getting to him. And I think as round 8 came on, he was slowing down. And Usyk was kicking it into gear, and the fight changed. So, I thought that it was a phenomenal fight that could have gone either way until the last couple rounds. And that knockdown certainly did a big thing. To me, Usyk really just did what I expected him to do out there. And I thought Fury fought a fantastic fight. I mean, people are criticizing him, how did he lose to a guy this small? I mean, the guy that he fought was an elite, one of the great, I don't want to say one of the great heavyweights because he doesn't have a great heavyweight resume yet, but one of the great fighters of his generation. And Fury was right there in the fight. So I thought a great performance by both and a big lift for boxing.
Did you you know what I noticed when Fury was coming to the ring and he was dancing and doing all this other nonsense, and I think that played a part in everything that happened to him. It's just, I know he does that a lot, I know, but this is a huge mega fight, and it looked like not only was he taking Usyk a little bit lightly, I thought, but it just seemed like he wasn't as into it as he should have been. Now, I Coach Diz and I had it too the same way, with Usyk getting off to a good start, then Tyson sweeping 3 till 7. But it just seemed like he couldn't get in his groove because he seemed like he was playing to the crowd, looking at the crowd. And if you saw the Usyk stare down, Usyk was not playing the game in that game.
I don't think that really had any impact, George. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I think that's who Tyson Fury is. And, he's relaxed. And I think that's how he sort of handles the pressure of events, right? There's a lot of pressure to perform, and different people handle it different ways. And you get some people that come out and, and Fury is one that, he more just, plays around and has fun, and that's his way of handling the pressure. And I mean, hey, look, I thought he fought a fantastic fight, right? I don't think he won. I had it 15-12, and I disagree totally with the split decision. I didn't think Fury won that fight. You could say 14-13 Usyk, you could say 15-12 Usyk. I don't think you could really give Fury the fight. But it was a close fight. He was in the fight, and he fought well. So I don't see how the little, he didn't do a lot, the little dancing, I thought the mistake maybe he made was, in the fight itself, put his hands behind. He got cracked a couple of times when he put his hands down.
Yeah. What about him fighting in the corners? He would always back to the corner. I didn't know why he kept doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was looking for, where to take a break, and then he thought he might be able to counter the counterpuncher off the ropes, right? But, I kind of felt like, the advantage he had was that jab work, and I didn't think that he threw the jab with the kind of authority that I thought he would do, right? He flicked it out there and he patty poked it and everything. But, when Fury really commits to that jab and he steps into it and he extends it, that is a legitimate weapon. And I thought that was what he did not do enough of, right? I don't know, maybe we should get Coach Jay on here, Janet Finkfine, and we can get her opinion of it. But
the link is in the chat. If anybody wants to join, they can.
Coach Jay, you heard that.
Coach Jay, Coach Diz, Coach Leo, whoever wants to join.
Well, we want Coach Diz should be in here full time with us, right?
He should, but
where is he, right? Yeah. He just, but we can see what other expert boxing minds think, is what I'm saying. but I thought that Fury's jab really let him down, right? He scored points with it, but I didn't think he turned it into the weapon that he could have.
Well, Jason Gavin was on my show last Thursday or Friday, no, Saturday. He was on. He told me Tyson Fury was by far the best heavyweight he'd ever been in the ring with. And he said that jab, you were right. And he said, you have to be, and this is exactly what you said, you got to be mid-range with Tyson. You can't be at the end and you can't be in the front. You got to be mid-range because Jason is a bit of a counterpuncher. Similar size as Usyk too. And he said the same exact thing that you were saying. And boy, that
a shocker that was, huh?
Yeah. I tend to try. We always disagree on certain things, especially our pound for pound list. That is well. But I'll tell you what, we agreed on the fight. 115, 112. I had for Usyk. I thought he swept the middle rounds or got swept in the middle rounds, but at the end, and the knockdown really put him in a different stratosphere there. I didn't think he had much after that. But
yeah, I mean, Fury was lucky. I thought that they could have stopped the fight. I also thought they could have called the knockdown a little bit earlier. What's that?
You think they could have stopped that?
I do. He reeled from, 3 corners of the ropes right before he went in and went down. And he was out. I thought he was out on his feet, right? And to me, that's a sign, boy, when you do that, he's you got a big heavyweight landing clean shots on you to the head. You don't necessarily want to have that. I think maybe if it was Deontay Wilder, that fight would have gotten stopped, because Wilder has the reputation of being that huge puncher and Usyk does not. But I'll tell you what, man, that, I agree with the referee's decision. I thought Mark Nelson did it right, but there's people who I respect who thought that it should have been stopped. I think it was something that he had to consider, but I thought because of the magnitude of the fight, they probably should have let it go on. But it was something that the referee at least had to be thinking seriously about.
Now let's turn our attention real quickly to after this is over. Now the IBF is stripping Usyk, so it's a 24-hour champion. Do we really want to see Usyk and Joshua again at some point here? Because it looks like it's where it's headed.
I think it's going to be Fury and Usyk, really, to be honest with you. And I don't think either Fury or Usyk will fight in October. I think that's going to be too soon. Remember what happened here. So they had signed before Fury fought Ngannou. So at that point, Usyk started training camp. They were going to fight on December 23rd. Then Fury looks like shit in the fight with Ngannou. So they decide not to fight on December 23rd, and they push the fight to February 17th. Then Fury gets the cut, and that pushes the fight till Saturday. So those time frames, Usyk is in camp that whole time. And then Fury was in camp, George, most of that time, except that, when he was healing up the cut. And I just think, it's a lot of time away from family, a lot of work. And you add in the fact that Fury had to do some work for Ngannou. He didn't do a lot, but he did some work for the Ngannou fight. I mean, holy smokes. I mean, that was a lot of work.
Yeah. And speaking of the scorecards, did you see the Sergey Kovalev scorecard?
I remember the fight. I mean, I thought he got destroyed. What happened?
The one judge had Kovalev had it even, I believe. Or no, I think he had Kovalev winning, one of the judges.
Well, that judge, whoever it was, should be drug tested.
So, let me ask you this: the judges that go out there, are they appointed by the Saudis, or are they appointed from here and go out there? How does that work?
They were there was 2 regulating bodies there. For all the fights on the card, but the main event, it was regulated by the British Boxing Board of Control. So the British Boxing Board of Control appointed the judges and the referees, and they regulated the fight. The main event, they felt like that wasn't fair, so the Middle Eastern Boxing Commission regulated the main event. So the Middle Eastern Boxing Commission now. Given that, they just took the judges that were there. So the judges that were there were brought in by the British Boxing Board of Control.
Okay, because boy, some of those judges were all over the place. Some of the scores and even the referee and the one fight In the Cardina fight, Joseph Cardina, man, he was not good. He was not good, and I don't think
It was
that
Victor Laughlin, wasn't it?
I think it was. He was an older guy. I don't think that late hit really had much of an effect on Cardina because he kind of was like, what the hell? And then, oh man, he got hit really bad, and he was out.
I thought I was surprised, but when the late punch came in, and remember he goes down face first there, I thought he made a big mistake. He hopped up right away, and I think you take that, you go face first, and that generally
No,
means
that was a knockdown. That was the knockdown. The late hit happened, and they just kind of broke him up.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah. And
later. Then he went that face first was a bad knockdown.
But he should have not gotten up so fast.
Yeah. And that was a big problem for him. I don't think he had his feet under him. I don't think he had anything under him. And then he got hit with an uppercut that came from Florida, hit him square on the chin. That was a bad one. So where does Tyson Fury go from here if he elects to take this rematch? Does he have to win this one, or does he retire? Because he's done everything.
I mean, look, Fury said after the Wilder 3 fight that he was thinking about retiring. So, he now this week he said, or last week he said he wanted to fight 10 more fights, right? But I think everything is predicated on how you do on the night of. And, he didn't do very well. So, you look at it and you say he did lousy against Ngannou, and now he loses to Usyk. No shame in losing to Usyk, who's one of the greats, but I think from Fury's standpoint, he probably thinks, there was more that he could have done. I give him credit. I thought he fought okay, but, maybe if he was the Fury of, especially the second Wilder fight, but even the third Wilder fight, maybe we'd be talking about a different outcome here, George.
Now look, take Usyk's resume now, okay? Cruiserweight champion, it was dominated as a cruiserweight, right?
Yep.
Moves up to heavyweight, becomes undisputed champion, and when he became undisputed champion, for me, against someone far tougher than Buster Douglas did for Evander Holyfield. We look at Evander Holyfield as a phenomenal, all-time great fighter. Doesn't Usyk kind of step into that area too now?
Well, I think Usyk, of course, is an all-time great fighter now. I mean, no, Olympic gold medalist, unbeaten as a pro, undisputed cruiserweight champion, undisputed heavyweight champion. He beat the elite cruiserweights out there. So he beats Briedis, Marco Huck, and who was the third?
That was the guy, Bello, yeah. Right?
And cruiserweight. And then he beats Joshua twice, Fury, and Daniel Dubois, who was a good, talented guy, right? I don't think Daniel Dubois is a finished product, but a talented guy. That is a good resume. And, I think he's still got some fights left in him. So Usyk is the real deal. There's no question about that. And, if people are dogging Usyk, they don't know what they're looking at.
I think the fight that's going to really tell where everybody's going is Zhang Wilder. Because I think that fight kind of is going to, who wouldn't want to see Zhang or Wilder fight Usyk? I would personally. Big guy versus small guy. You talk about David versus Goliath.
It would be less so with Wilder, right? Because Wilder is 6'6", and he's going to come in around the same weight as Usyk would be. Zhang certainly different. Zhang bigger and heavier, right? Mm-hmm. But Wilder's at his best in the 220s. Right? So, and that's where Usyk was 223 the other day. And I think that's Usyk's weight, 220 to 225 is his weight, where he should be in this thing. Here's the thing that I think is interesting. Since we have the WBA and the WBC have that stupid Bridgerweight division, Usyk could become a 3-division undisputed champion because all he has to get out there and do is beat the 2 Bridgerweight champions. And now he's undisputed at Bridgerweight, undisputed at cruiserweight, and undisputed at heavyweight.
And certainly that's something that would probably happen in the heavyweight division since boxing cannot get its act together. That would be incredible. But again, nothing ceased to amaze me in the world of boxing. Coming up this weekend, Catterall versus Taylor. That's a grudge match. They don't like each other. First fight, I kind of think Taylor got a gift there. Is this Father Time catching up with Taylor, or is this was just a one-time shot for Catterall?
I think a little bit of both, but I think more leaning toward Catterall. Just kind of everything went his way on that particular given night, and he raised his game, and and he performed on a given night. I talked to Taylor right before the rematch was canceled. I had done a video with him. I think the video, if I'm not mistaken, is on my YouTube channel because I think I put it out, and then the fight got canceled. But Taylor was very confident of victory in this rematch, and I like Taylor's chances of winning that. I think Taylor is a world-class fighter, and he loses to Teofimo Lopez, who is also a world-class fighter. And so we just kind of look down a little bit on Teofimo Lopez because of how goofy he acts sometimes. And of course, the loss to Kambosos, who, that's kind of a mind-blowing loss, like how you could lose to a guy like Kambosos. But, I think he had a lot of stuff going on in his personal life. He was ill. He had that esophageal problem. The doctor said he could die that night. But I think when you look at that, I think this is Josh Taylor's fight to win.
And as you see, the next, this summer, boxing is heating up with some good fights. Other than the fact that Fred Sternberg going into the Hall of Fame, which is a big day, some other things happening. What fight are you looking forward to the most?
Well, the fight it was on the schedule. Now we don't have a date for it. Was Beterbiev and Bivol, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that fight is, I think Bivol doesn't get enough credit, right? And maybe he's going to be one of those guys that never gets credit because I think, he's going to, he gets injured and he has that. But boy, I'll tell you what, Beterbiev, 20-0 with 20 KOs, and Bivol, that terrific boxer, win over Canelo, undefeated. You're talking two undefeated guys with legitimate ties to the heavyweight or the light heavyweight championship. To me, that was the fight. Of course, Estrada and Bam Rodriguez, that's going to also be that is worth your $240 to DAZN right there. That fight, right?
Right. And Rodriguez wanted that fight. Bam said, I want this fight.
Yes.
If I don't get this fight, I'll just take time off. That's a tough call. I mean, I'm personally looking forward to Tank and Frank Martin. I do think Tank will overpower him. I don't know if Frank Martin is as good as advertised.
I'm with you.
But if Tank gets by him and easily, Lomachenko Tank would be one I'd like, because who else can? He's in that little area 135. He's either got to move up or unify the belts, do something.
Yeah, like with Frank Martin, I think he's really unproven at this level, right? And certainly he would not get this fight were he not an Al Heyman guy, right? So he's getting the fight with Tank because he's in the PBC, been in the PBC, in the Heyman infrastructure, so they're going to give him the fight. But he hasn't beaten anybody to really earn this position. And he had a chance to fight Shakur Stevenson, and he doesn't take that fight. I mean, to me, really bad business decision. Although I think he looks at it and he says, I'm going to lose to Shakur Stevenson, who to me, I don't want people to get this wrong. I didn't say he's the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. I said he has the kind of talent to be the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. I think that's how good Shakur is at his peak. He's been a little bit up and down as a pro, but I think Shakur has that kind of talent that if he puts it all together, and he's already, an elite fighter, George, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
But I think Frank looked at the landscape and he realized I'm going to get my, 10-2 by Shakur. That's what was going to happen, and decides not to take that fight. And so what are you better at, fighting Gervonta and getting knocked out by Gervonta, or getting whitewashed by Shakur Stevenson? Who knows?
Was that a money issue, or just because of? Was that a money issue?
He's claiming it was money, right? But I mean, how do you agree to the fight, and then all of a sudden, you agree to the fight after they offer you the money, right? And then you pull out later. So, I mean, I don't think the real story on that has, come out and been out. But I mean, I think if I'm Frank Martin and I have a chance to fight Shakur Stevenson, I mean, Frank Martin's sitting there going, hey, this is the guy that people think, he's in the Bud Crawford camp. He's a guy that Crawford has really praised as a talented fighter. You go out and you beat him, and, you're confident. You say, and Frank Martin saying his public comments are, I can beat this guy. Well, if you can beat him, then go do it. And that enhances your resume, because right now you have no resume. There's no significant wins to speak of. that gives you the significant win. Now he's going to come into this fight, and he's a big underdog against Tank. And if he gets drilled in that fight, that's what Tank does to everybody. But a lot of people are going to look at it. Yeah, this guy's another one in the in the bum of the month club.
Did you see the press conference?
Which press conference?
Tank and Martin.
I did. I mean, I'm not sure what the hell what was going on with them, but it was kind of a weird press conference.
Martin didn't look as confident. He didn't look too confident to me. He looked like there was, he was stumbling over his words a little bit. Tank is a confident guy who knows if he can sense blood, this fight's over quick, and that's why I feel that way. But go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, to me, Martin is a guy made for Gervonta Davis. Martin's a boxer puncher who's going to be there, fighting you. Whereas Shakur is a guy that, is going to create angles. He's going to flick that jab. He's going to move. He's going to head movement. He's going to fight. He's going to frustrate you. So I think, from a Tank standpoint, if you want Tank Davis to look good, you put Tank in there with Frank Martin. And if you put Tank in there with Shakur Stevenson, hey, I think Tank is an elite fighter. I'm separating Frank and Tank, right?
Yeah.
I think Tank is an elite fighter, but I think, a fight with Shakur Stevenson's a lot harder for him than a fight with Frank Martin.
I got a question. I think Shakur, this is the Big Don. He has a Big Don show. He's a pretty good guy there with a great content on his channel.
Is he on Coach Jay's team?
No, I don't think so. He might at some point. I think Shakur can beat anybody at lightweight. You got to get me on one of these shows. Yes, definitely get you on. This, this guy here, he YouTube his training. He's a student at one of the universities. He vlogged his training all the way up. And I saw his first amateur fight, which, by the way, he won, and I didn't film it. And
what does he fight at? What weight?
I think he's about 65. He was bigger. And I just, for some reason, didn't. I interviewed him in the back. I got him ready. I don't know what I was thinking, and I didn't film it. And he won.
Well, he like Shakur, he knows good. But I mean, I think Shakur is an elite talent, and I think Shakur potentially has more talent than anybody in boxing today, with the possible exception of Naoya Inoue.
Oh God, you with Inoue.
I don't understand what you're...
I just don't like. I want him to fight in the United States. I know who do you fight in the United States? Who do you fight?
Maloney, Jason Maloney.
Coach Diz likes him, so that's all. That's all you got.
Well, Coach Diz is a smart man.
Listen. I know this has nothing no bearing on their talent or whatever, but if you look at Shakur, the name Shakur Stevenson rings a bell, right? Tank Davis rings a bell. Frank Martin, you can't get behind it. That's why it doesn't have that appeal. And then when I know it has nothing to do with whatever, but like I've always, through the whole history of boxing, when they have a name that is a catchy name or something that you always know, you watch that guy, say, oh, that guy's going to be good.
Right.
Name that sticks. And Frank Martin doesn't exactly stick out there.
Well, I'm just pulling while we're talking. So I'm pulling up, here's to me what I think. Frank Martin, made a reputation. He started, he was fighting underneath Errol Spence on a lot of the cards. He was his teammate.
Mm-hmm.
And he's looking pretty good in some of these fights. But let's just go back to where we go. Let's go to 2021. He fights Jerry Perez, 13-0 Jerry Perez. I don't think Perez is,
no, Jerry Perez hasn't been around lately.
Right. Ryan Kilszewski, not much. Romero Duno, who's best known for getting destroyed by Ryan Garcia. Jackson Marinas, not a big, fighter there. Michelle Rivera, who's best known for imitating Muhammad Ali, and then Haratunian. I think Haratunian's a decent fighter, right? But that, like, you look at it, that's a pretty light resume to get a fight with Tank Davis. And I realize Tank is the big draw here, right? So that's why I say Shakur Stevenson fight would have been great for him to take. You take that Stevenson fight, and you get a really big name on your belt if you win the fight. If I'm Frank Martin and I believe I'm good enough to beat Shakur Stevenson and Tank Davis, then I want Shakur. I want to get his name on my resume. And then I go out there and I'm going to make more money versus Tank, and the fight's going to be bigger. There's going to be nobody out there now. I will guarantee you, if somebody does a poll who wins this fight, it's going to be 95-5 in favor of Frank, in favor of Gervonta Davis.
I think it was a bad move because I think he could have hung with Shakur as far as not getting knocked out. Not getting knocked out.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah.
But if you go against Tank, you get knocked out clean. There's a whole different. You're looking at a whole different person at that point. They said, "Well, he got washed by this guy." I think he could have hung with Shakur. I think he could have hung with Shakur because of his size. Maybe not boxing ability. I think he had a problem there, but he's not going to get knocked out.
Yeah, Shakur is a guy that can embarrass you, and I think some fighters don't want to fight that guy, right? Because he throws you off, and he can do so many things in the ring, and he's also a good talker, right? And so that kind of gets in your head, and you're trying to kill him, and it's like he gets you fighting his fight. He's the matador, and you're the bull. And that's what happens. But I think, that it was a mistake on Frank's part. He's going to say, hey, I got the Gervonta Davis fight, so I got the higher paying fight. Great. But I think it's not about one fight. It's about putting a collection of wins together. And if you really think that you're an elite lightweight and that you can compete at this level, take those kind of fights.
Well, I think he's got to do something in his next fight. You got to have somebody on your resume. Who are you going to have? I know he's fighting in Newark in a couple weeks. I forget who he's fighting, but it's
Shakur.
Yeah, who's he fighting?
Let me see. I forget. Yeah, it's Hartunian.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but
Shakur. I mean, I think Shakur, different story. Like you look at Shakur. So he didn't look good in the De Los Santos fight, but he fights Conceição. He fights Oscar Valdez. Yoshino. Was a guy coming up. He beats, veteran Jamel Herring. Nakathila had been a guy that been around for a while. So, Joet Gonzalez. So he had some wins that not that they're staggering, Alexander Usyk type wins, but they were good, solid wins. Certainly more than what Frank has.
Okay, Sogi, who he called, I keep messing up his name, but it's Sogi. He said, I think Frank Martin is semi-proven. He looked great against Michael Rivera, and Frank and Shakur will have a common opponent in Artem. I forget how you spell it. Hartuniev. I always say Hartnev. Showing how good each of them truly are. Kevin, what do you think?
I mean, I think that Shakur will beat the brakes off Hartunian, and Frank did not. So I think that'll be the difference, right?
Oh, Kevin pulling out the beat the brakes off of somebody. Oh, God. That's hilarious.
Like I would do against Coach Diz.
I don't know. You and Coach would be nip and tuck. But I'll tell you what, it would be nip and tuck. Honestly, Coach Diz is he is down like 47 pounds. Look great. Oh, by the way, total. Well, he doesn't have any muscle yet. He's working on it. He goes to Planet Fitness every day, but certainly not working right now. Total disaster with my shoulder, by the way.
Yes, we heard the bad news.
Oh yeah, I did tell you. Totally severed both. What is that there? Oh, there you go. You're Planet Fitness. Okay. Do you go every day? No, you golf every day, don't you?
Coach Diz, we're coming for you.
Well, you're not going to be at the Hall of Fame. He's going to have to go out to Vegas to see you.
It's going to be me and Coach J against you and Coach Diz.
I would switch that up quickly, and I'll take Coach J. You take Coach Diz.
Well, good. It's going to be a tag team right here.
We could. Lord knows how that would end up. Well, we're going to wrap this up here in a couple minutes because unless there's anyone else who's got any other questions, and you were out golfing today, Kev, so you're probably just about bored as anything.
Yeah, I was out with Abel Sanchez,
Abel.
Triple G's former coach. So yeah, Abel and I play a lot of golf together. I haven't seen him for a while. This was my first time playing in about 8 months. I used to play 4 or 5 days a week. And for a variety of reasons, none of which we need to talk about here, unless we need to stall till Coach Diz gets on. I haven't played, but I love to play, and Abel and I talked a lot of boxing today.
Is Abel out of boxing?
Yeah, he retired. So he sold his gym. He called it the Summit Gym in Big Bear. He sold that to Jaime Munguia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so sold the gym to Munguia. Really good gym.
Mhm.
And Abel's like a tech guy, and he's an amateur photographer, loves photography. So he had a lot of cameras in the gym and set up, you can analyze the fighters and, what they were doing and everything. But after his, incident with Golovkin, he was really hurt by that. And he tried to keep going a little bit. And, he lost a couple of guys and he just kind of felt like, it wasn't worth it. He's going to be 70 years old later this year. So he retired from boxing.
Oh, it looks good for 70. He looks great. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought he got out of boxing because I think he was real disappointed. I think that Triple G thing hurt him a lot.
I remember I was going. There's a golf course here in Las Vegas called Paiute where I used to be a member. It's a beautiful golf course. They have 54 holes. And I was going up there to play. And I had texted Abel earlier and said, hey, if you're around, join me and play. And I had just gotten in the car and I'm halfway up to the golf course. And he calls me and I thought he called me to say, hey, I'm going to be there. And he calls me and said, there's going to be a press release put out very soon, but I just got fired or not fired, but I just split with Gennady. He actually left. Gennady made him an offer, cut his pay down, and said, I'll offer you this. And it was a big pay cut. And Abel said no and left. And that was kind of, and you're right, that hurt him. I talked to him. He loved Gennady Golovkin, and they were good for each other. Gennady certainly helped Abel win Trainer of the Year and gave him a lot of notoriety and helped him get other fighters. But Abel helped make Gennady a lot better fighter than he was, and I thought they were a good, coach trainer fighter matchup. And but that stuff happens in boxing, and both guys, the only thing that I was disappointed, like today we were talking, and he said I still have not heard from ever from Gennady since what
Oh,
happened.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Sogi again, George, I have an extreme hot take. I think Frank pulls off the upset. I think Tank has everything to lose, and I think Frank will have the performance of a lifetime. I have this strong gut feeling. Well, I mean, if I'm picking Tank, bet the opposite. Although I'll tell you, Kevin, you've been on lately. You've had your picks doing very well.
I don't. I'm just pulling up the odds here right now because I think what is his name? Softy?
No, Sogi. I said Softy.
Sorry about that, Sogi. I'm just trying to look at your number here because here it is. You're going to make a lot of money here. Davis is minus 800.
Holy
is plus 500. So bet a couple $100 on Frank Martin. At plus 500. You'll make some money if you feel that way. I just don't see it. I don't see Frank being in that league. I think Frank is a good, solid lightweight fighter, and he's going to give a lot of guys trouble. But I don't think he's going to beat the elite top of the division guys. And of course, Gervonta Davis, in my opinion, is an elite top of the division guy.
Now, you had an article today on KevinO'Reilly.com about the top pound-for-pound fighters.
Yes.
After the fight Saturday, has it switched up?
I switched. I had Usyk number 3. So my top 3 going in, I had last week, Crawford 1, Inoue 2, Usyk 3. And I now have it Usyk 1, Crawford 2, Inoue 3. And my thought process in that was pretty simple. I looked at it and I said, pound for pound is generally not for heavyweights. It was created in the mid 40s as a way to compare Sugar Ray Robinson to Joe Louis, right? Because Joe Louis, people consider the heavyweight champion the baddest man on the planet. And so that was Joe Louis. And now Sugar Ray Robinson comes along and he's the greatest fighter anybody ever saw. And to my mind, right now he is the greatest fighter who ever lived. But, he's 147 pounds and Joe Louis was fighting at 205, 210, right? And so people were saying, could Sugar Ray Robinson possibly beat Joe Louis? And that led to the creation of pound for pound. So generally heavyweights aren't in there. But in this era where we have such diverse heavyweights, we have what some people might call, I don't call small, but some people will call Usyk a small heavyweight at 6'3", 223 pounds. up against a 6'9", 262-pound Tyson Fury. And, Usyk is coming off the 2 wins over AJ, where he was never in trouble and he was pretty clearly ahead in both of those fights and, looked good. Then Daniel Dubois, and now this fight. And he also beat, not that I have a, high opinion of Chaz Witherspoon at that stage of Chaz's career as a fighter, but he had that win. And then you add on, the cruiserweight victories that he had. I mean, I don't see how you can vote for Usyk at this point.
Did the inactivity of Crawford play a factor or no?
Well, I have a year, so Beterbiev has been out more than a year, but he has a fight schedule. So that's my one thing. If you have a fight schedule, so then I'll let you slide, right? Crawford has a fight schedule now, so he's in, and he's still within that 1 year time frame. Anyways, he's going to exceed it by a couple of days, right? Because he's fighting August 3rd, and he fought last year on July 29th. But he's moving up in weight. He's fighting Madrimov, a guy that doesn't have that big of a name. But I think Madrimov is good. I think Crawford's going to spank him, right? But I think Madrimov is a good fighter. And Madrimov is going to beat a lot of 154-pound fighters. So, I think Crawford's taking it on. So I just kind of feel like, given what Usyk was up against, the physical challenges of what he was up against, that really has to play into this.
All right, last point before anything. Canelo, Crawford, is there any shot that happens? Turki Al-Sheikh wants it.
I mean, if Turki Al-Sheikh wants it, then there's a shot that it happens, right? Canelo doesn't want it because he doesn't see what it does for him, right? If he, his idea is if he goes out and spanks Crawford, what's that do for him, right? People are going to say, it was a welterweight, but he did fight Charlo. And is there anybody that would say that Crawford is not tougher than Charlo? And I think everybody, would raise their hand and say, who's tougher? And they would pick Canelo over. They would pick Bud Crawford over Charlo. So, there's not a lot of great opponents for Canelo at 168 right now. That's why he ended up do you want to fight Edgar Berlanga?
No, he'd kill Edward Berlanga.
Right. Berlanga's going to get destroyed in that fight, and he knows it, but he wants the payday. Everybody wants that payday. But if you're Canelo and your argument is, hey, what am I going to get by beating Crawford? You're going to get a hell of a lot more money and a hell of a lot more respect for beating Crawford than you will for beating Edgar Berlanga.
Mm-hmm. And Sogi has one more question, and I know you answered this, but if he goes to kevinolly.com, register there. Kevin, he wants your.
Don't have to register; it's free. You can go there and read it. Only a comment. You got to register.
Yeah, and he wants to know. He wants to know on your pound for pound list. Give him top 5, and his thoughts on Inoue, and your thoughts on Inoue. Obviously, the monster.
Why are you laughing about Inoue? Inoue is great. Well, this is my pound for pound list. I rank 16, but my top 5, since that's what George wants, I have Usyk 1, Crawford 2, Inoue 3, Beterbiev 4, and Canelo 5. Some people don't like Beterbiev over Canelo. Canelo's been a little bit up and down both with the opposition and with his performances. Beterbiev 20-0 with 20 KOs, and he's fighting good guys. Bivol's going to be the one thing I worry about Beterbiev is that his body's going to break down, right? He's older. He's already got 3 fights with Usyk, by the way. He beat Usyk twice in the amateurs.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. And he's really good, this guy. And so I think that, I have him there because I feel like he's fought good opposition and he's, what better can you do? He's won most of his fights by first round knockout. So that's my top 5. And in a way, when he beat Luis Nery, I sat there for the longest period of time. And I was trying to make an argument. How do I make Inoue number 1 pound for pound in the world? Because to me, the guy is phenomenal. He is an all-time great. But at that point, we don't know that Usyk has beaten Tyson Fury. So I have Crawford above him. So I'm comparing Crawford's win over Errol Spence and to Inoue's last two wins, which were over Marlon Tapales and then Luis Neri. And he got into the later rounds in that fight with Marlon Tapales, who I thought he was much better than. And he got dropped in the first round by Luis Neri, who was 35-1 and was a two-time world champion, I should add, right? With a lot of knockouts in there. So when you're doing pound for pound and you're breaking it down on that close, those are the kind of things. Who's dropped Bud Crawford, right? When has Crawford ever struggled to win a fight? Not that Inoue has either, but he wasn't as good against Tapales as he's been against some other guys. So that was my difference in keeping Crawford above Inoue. And then as I went this week, when I added Usyk in, now really it was, do I jump Usyk from 3-1 over Bud and push the other two guys down? And I just knowing who. I have a list here. So and I don't have Chaz Witherspoon on this list, but he beats Fury, who was 38.5 pounds heavier than him. Daniel Dubois was 12.25 pounds heavier than him. AJ2 was 23 pounds heavier. AJ1 was 18.75. Derek Chisora, 38.25 pounds heavier. And I think Witherspoon was 27 pounds heavier. I mean, 5 fights in a row. Boy, oh boy, that is something else.
Yeah, Sogi says, nice, Kevin, has my top 3 pound for pound. Look, see, they definitely value your opinion. And Sogi, if you want the best combat sports, go to KevinIoli.com. He's got it in there every day, something new every day. And his YouTube channel blowing up like crazy. You get the greatest interviews. I saw a couple takes you had there by yourself. After the fight was over, I love that.
I love the fight. I did 3 columns and then in my video after that fight. I was so fired up. I was planning to write the Navarrete Barincic fight.
Oh, how about that?
and write a story on that. And I was writing so much that I just kept, and they ran that Saudi card out so long, that it ended 5:45.
They got to stop that. They got to stop that. They're going to turn people off.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I mean, I don't know. You were in the chat there at ppv.com, but that turns people off. It was turning me off. I'm like, man, I can't be here. They got to figure that out.
Yeah, what I know, that the Saudis are going to, they're in control of that. And I thought it was a mistake to do the music before the main event and whoever that rap guy was. Like, I'm not into pop culture, and I don't know if that guy's considered good at rap or bad at rap. I don't know. And I
could tell you, but Kevin, I could tell you, he's bad. He's bad at rap.
No, that guy was bad. Whoever the hell he was bad. But I think you could have had him perform at some other time. There was other times for him to perform. We didn't need, and I also thought, they did 3 anthems. We could have done anthems a lot earlier too. Get them out of the way. And I like, what UFC actually does, no anthems, right? Just let's have the fight. And, that's it. Just, what is the point of playing a national anthem at fights? I don't quite get that. So,
do you think that they have to improve that? Are you on? They have to somehow move it along where you can, because it takes away they had a good momentum going with all those knockouts. They're going good momentum going. Amazon did it very well. They did it very well. The last one, UFC does it the best. Amazon, if they can keep that going, because it's horrible for us on the East Coast. This one was okay for us, but I mean, if they did this show at 8 o'clock on our time, no way anybody would watch it. No way.
Right. Yeah. You're starting these fights, the fights are starting at 8 o'clock now, East Coast, the first fight on pay-per-view, not the Saudi fights, but the PBC fights and those ones. And they're starting at 8 o'clock and they're going on 2.5, 3 hours. And so you're still, getting people going out on Saturday nights, it's 11 o'clock or later when the main event's starting, sometimes midnight. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's tough to ask. You're trying to, look what the NFL does. Right. And when I was a kid, boxing was on Saturday afternoons a lot. The only reason I don't like boxing on Saturday afternoons now is other programming has taken its place, right? There's baseball in the afternoon. In the winter, there's, college basketball games are on and, sometimes NBA games are on. Mm-hmm. But, it used to be that a good time for boxing, was that Saturday afternoon, time slot. And, go in there and, you can put on, and hey, who's stopping you from putting on fights after the main event, right? Get the main event a little earlier. So people in New York should be one of your biggest markets, and you should be kissing the butts of people in New York to watch your events. And you want to get as many people in New York watching, because we know New York is a boxing town. What's the population in New York? 16, 18, 20 million people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you nuts to not want to get that audience in? You're going to get a lot of fans. I agree with you. I think that's something that they have to do. I'm going to be curious when Turkey Al-Sheikh brings the card to LA, what the timing is like. And if I get a chance, I don't want to promise I'm going to talk to him, because I know it's difficult to get to him. He's a government official. We don't have the General Entertainment Authority in the United States. So I don't know how you would compare the General Entertainment Authority, where it ranks in their government compared to in the U.S. government. But I know he's a government official. But if I can get him, and that'll be something that I would talk to him about.
I'll tell Coach Diz to get him for you. He'll get you on the show. I'll get it for you. But
Coach Jay, either one.
Either or. I came in on the tail end of that Saturday boxing. Aaron Davis. I remember Aaron Davis versus Mark Breland. That was like the last one that I was on. It was on ABC, and I remember him getting knocked out. I was on the tail end of that, but I was more of the Tuesday night fights, Friday night fights era. Boxing HBO Saturday night over by 11 or 11:30, except Boxing After Dark. That was later, but if they can get back to that, they're really missing on their production. Is what they were doing. They're making it hard for me to buy, or hard for me to do it. If I'm a guy who watches boxing, you can imagine a casual's like, screw this, I ain't doing this.
Well, I love to talk about how can we fix boxing, because I still believe in my heart that boxing is a great sport and can succeed, right? And there's a ton of evidence over my lifetime. I'm 64 years old. There is a ton of evidence over these last 60 years that this sport is basically on life support, right? And it's going away, and it's getting less and less and less. But what you see is when you have the big fights, when you have the right matchups, people show. Mm-hmm. And we're now all of a sudden now in this era, we have, not only are we've had how many undisputed title fights this month? 3 this month alone, and I think 6 in the last 13 months. I mean, it's incredible. We're finally starting to get those guys fighting each other, and we're going to have Better Biev, fighting Bivol for the light heavyweight title. Mm-hmm. That'll be another one. But what they have to do on top of that, you can't just rest on your laurels there. What they have to do now is start making good undercards. I was putting the odds out in the pay-per-view.com chat the other day of these fights, and they were minus 1,400, minus 1,800. I mean, you got to get these fights where it's, 8-5, 7-5, make even matchups. And I know they're going to say it's money, but if the Saudis are paying for it, the difference between $500,000 and $1.5 million is nothing to them. Mm-hmm. They like cigars with $1 million. So, they can make those fights, get them made.
Yeah. If they can work together with that Don King used to do it all the time. I mean, he didn't pay over. I mean, I think the top upper echelon maybe overpaid, but that's across the board in like football. And a lot of these guys are overpaid. We had I just saw a guy, he's tremendously overpaid, but I won't say him. And if they took less, now granted, what's that?
Jalen Hurts?
No, it was a guy who was drafted from here in this area. Was picked number 5, and he has a shoulder surgery.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, not good for a position he plays. We'll put it that way. And so they paid him $5 million. So these guys are getting overpaid. So yes, they're fighters. They're putting their lives on the line. I get that, but they got to make money. Everyone's gonna make money.
Well, yeah. Let me say this here. Let me answer that, because in football, the NFL is generating such huge revenues.
Right.
They have a salary cap. So when you add all that money in, the players are worth what they're being paid. They're getting 52% of the gross. So each team can choose to spend however they want to spend in the cap. But they are all doing roughly the same thing. They're taking whatever the cap number is, 230 million or 240 million, divided by 53, and they're coming out with an average, and they're trying to hit that. That money, the difference in boxing is there's very few people who sell tickets and sell pay-per-views, right? Floyd Mayweather did it. So you never heard me bitch about him getting a $300 million purse, right? Because he sold tickets. He he brought people to town. When Floyd Mayweather fought in Las Vegas, the town stopped. The hotels were filled up. Even if not all those people went to the fight, they were in town because of Floyd Mayweather.
Mhm.
That's why they were there. He sold tickets. He sold pay-per-views. Tank Davis is doing that now. Canelo, to a lesser degree, does that right now. So if you do that, I'm all for paying you. But if you do not sell tickets and you're not a pay-per-view seller, I don't care how talented a fighter you are, you're not worth $3 million or $2 million. And these fighters, they think it's monopoly money, and they don't realize it's real money,
Right.
and that there's somebody losing money on most of these promotions. And the sport would be healthier if you sat there and you said, hey, if I can make these undercard fights and I'm going to pay those people 10 or 15% less, and I can put better matchups on, that's going to make them more popular fighters in the long run, right? I mean, doesn't that make sense, George? I mean, when you think about it, if I sit there and I say, hey, I'm going to have Shakur Stevenson fighting on Tank's undercard, and Shakur's in a real fight, and it's a 6-5 or 7-5 odds fight, and he wins that fight, what are people going to be saying afterwards? I want to see him fight Tank. I want to see him fight Tank. It's going to make him more valuable. But if you have to sit there and pay him, $2.5-3 million to fight a nobody, what is he going to want to fight Tank? I mean, that's where it doesn't make sense.
They do that in I know it's staged, but WWE and in the UFC, they do that. They get a guy, they put him like on the undercard, and they say, "Wouldn't you want to see this guy?" And then they promote it during the show. That, hey, this guy would be a good fight for this guy. And it strikes me as odd that none of these guys go to like business school 101.
Right.
Obviously, they're very smart people, obviously, but it's more like, how much cash can I put in my pocket? And it doesn't work. You got to keep it. You got to look at the long term as opposed to the short term. Did any of those pay-per-view numbers come in for Haney and Garcia?
That did. Oh man, I want to say right around 500.
That low?
That was a good number. Low.
No, I'm saying he was saying $1.5 million. Who was saying?
He also said he made $50 million.
Yeah, no. And then Lomachenko, I think you were telling me, was pretty low too.
Well, Lomachenko, that was not a pay-per-view here in the U.S., so that was ESPN.
Okay,
Plus.
Was it a pay-per-view over in Australia?
I don't know if it was pay-per-view in Australia, but
okay.
Whenever you see me, and usually Mike Coppinger or Dan Rayfield, when you see us putting out pay-per-view numbers, that's referring to the U.S. number.
Okay.
That's which includes, in some cases, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, it also includes Canada.
Okay.
When Showtime was doing pay-per-views, which they're not anymore, sometimes they had differences where it was beyond Showtime in Canada, on regular Showtime, and on pay-per-view in the U.S. But
right.
Most of the time, it does that number will include Canada.
Okay. Well, Kevin, I think we're going to wrap it up here. We're about done. It's about time for me to go home and do my daily walk now with my wife. I do a daily walk.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, blood work came back terrible, so I got to get back. Go back on there.
Yeah, I'm just the opposite. I'm a fat slob, and my blood work came back perfect.
I don't get it. I mean, I can't figure it out. He was like, I got the blood test at 7:30. He called me at like 9:30. Like, yo, what's going on with your blood work? It like jumped. Cholesterol through the roof. Yeah.
So my cholesterol, total cholesterol under 100.
Is it really?
My LDLs were like 39, I think it was. But here, you know what? My doctor was going through, everything was good, all blah, blah, blah. A1C was good. All these different things were good. And I kept saying, what's a testosterone score? What's a testosterone score? And he said, oh, you got the testosterone numbers of a 40-year-old guy. And I'm like,
that's all you need. Me, and not so good. And then you know what my cholesterol was? 275. That's bad. That's really bad.
Yeah. No, I mean,
yeah. He's like, you got to be in like the 140s for my age. So you got to be like 140s, like optimal. It was 275.
So what are you eating?
I don't know. I probably bacon. There's a lot of bacon, a lot of eggs. I don't know. I had no clue. Maybe it was a false positive or something. His test was all jacked up. I have no idea. But I mean, he called me immediately after he got the results. It was like,
So
what?
they putting you on a statin drug?
I'm not going to take that. I'm going to we're going to go 3 months and see if I can straighten it out. I think what happened, Kevin, honestly, is when I got hurt, I think I spiraled into a bit of a depression because I was like, oh, I don't want to work out today. I don't want to do it. The fight's on, the fight's off, the fight's on, the fight's off. And then I just kind of started eating, and I eat crap.
I hear you there. I spiraled into a bit of depression during this Q&A when Coach Jay didn't show up.
Kevin, oh shit! What am I going to do?
I'm looking here right now, and I think the Flintstones are arriving.
Well, that's our cue to wrap this up, Kevin. But as always, KevinIoli.com. Go there, get the best combat sports material. Go to his website now. Go to his YouTube channel. He's got great interviews on there all the time. Kevin Ioli from KevinIoli.com. As always, good to see you, buddy.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
See you, man.